So again, thanks for everybody for joining us today. My name is Nancy Newton, and I'm a marketing program manager here with TCP Software. And I'm joined today by Jonathan Rittenhouse, who is going to be presenting today. He's a solution consultant, and he's actually somebody that you would work with if you wanted to actually demo the system. He'd walk you through these. So he really knows our products really well. Before we jump right in, I actually just wanted to give you a little information about TCP Software. We have been around for over 35 years, and we specialize in providing time tracking and scheduling solutions. So whether it's something you want to control your labor costs, or you want to streamline your scheduling process, or just you need more time back in your day with a system that will help you, that's what TCP is here for. It's all about getting the time right every time. In addition to Aladtec, we do have several other solutions that you might be familiar with, like Time Clock Plus, or Humanity, or Schedule Anywhere, or even InstaSub. So let's go ahead and get started. We are going to be recording this webinar today, and we will email you a copy afterwards. If you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to send them through the Q&A panel that you will see on the Zoom panel, and we'll be sure to get those answered for you. We do have an agenda I just wanted to briefly go through. We're going to actually touch base on the member database, walk through some of the schedules. We've got different views for these schedules, different ways to get people added to a schedule. We actually have an actual customizable forms section in Aladtec. We've got over 200 pre-made schedules that you can pull from or make customize them basically, change them up as you'd see fit. Also go through our reports, the several different types of reports that we've got throughout the system, including a system log report, which documents everything that's done in the system. And then we actually have a new feature that's going to be releasing in a few weeks. And Jonathan's just going to touch base a little bit about it, give you an idea of what it entails. So after that, like I mentioned, we'll do our Q&A, and you can certainly put those questions in throughout the webinar as well, and we'll get those answered. So with that, Jonathan, if you want to take it from here.
Absolutely. As Nancy mentioned earlier, we're going to take a look at a couple of different things inside of the system. Hopefully how we can make your life a little bit easier in regard to scheduling and managing the employees on the schedule there. So as a manager, a supervisor, somebody in charge of the schedule, when I first log into the system of Aladtec, what I like to point out is the dashboard over on the right-hand side. This will have all of the action items that you can, make choices on essentially, and you can deny or approve items. If somebody put in a trade request, you can approve or deny that from this screen. If somebody signed up for some extra hours, maybe they're wanting to get some extra hours for Christmas time, buy some extra presents or go on a trip during the holidays, maybe they're signing up for those hours, I can come in here and easily select that day and then approve or deny the sign up. And the nice thing about this is as soon as I do that, it'll automatically update the schedule and then notify the employee as well that they got added to the schedule there. And it would be the same thing with any time off, any pending time off request, whether or not it's sick or vacation or just a PTO, employees can put in a time off request in the system, and that'll automatically go over to an approver, a supervisor. And just like we could with the signups and the pending trades, I can approve or deny this. Again, the nice thing about that is I can see balances. If we have balances housed in the system, I can see how many hours this is going to be used for and what their beginning and what their ending balance would be as well, just so I know whether or not they actually have the balance available for that. Again, I can approve or deny these changes here in the system. And as soon as I do, it'll update that on the calendar, on the schedule, which we'll take a look at here in a moment. And something that we saw just a moment ago on one of Nancy's slides was the member database. And the member database, just where I can keep track of everything that pertains to my employees as far as phone numbers, emails, their demographic information, which schedules they're assigned to, what positions they're eligible to work, if they if you're a fire department and you're able to work out of rank and kind of step up, and the same with law enforcement and EMS, we can set that up in here. We can keep track of certifications and licenses. And the nice thing about that is we can have that tie back to our schedule. So as a manager, if I'm keeping track of those licenses, something as simple as, CPR certification or driver's license, and that's about to expire, I can receive notifications that an employee's certification is about to expire, and the employees can also receive a notification. And then if it already lapses and has expired, we can tell the system to not allow that employee to be put on the schedule. And the reason a lot of people like this is for auditing reasons, right? So maybe an auditor comes in and sees that Joe had an expired license, but is on the schedule. And then they say, hey, why is Joe on the schedule when driver's license is expired? And then you have to try to explain that away to an auditor. So we can help prevent those kinds of headaches and house all of that information within the member database. And we can add whatever we want into the member database with a member database configurator. By default, this is what we have, but you can add whatever fields you want by just drag and dropping additional items over into these over here. So I can add expiration dates if I need to for certifications. If I would need to add an attachment, I can add attachment fields. So employees, if we're keeping track of continuing education courses and they get a PDF, we can add that to their profile so we can easily pull that up and see, okay, this is what their certificate says when it expires or when they completed said certification. Oftentimes we'll add a number field for badge numbers for our law enforcement customers, but really anything that you want to add in here, we can add, and you can make these your own, as well as if there's something that you didn't need in here, we can remove that. So again, you can make these your own. Just because it's in here doesn't mean it has to be filled out. Of course, we can add things and mark them as required. So if we're going through that onboarding process, we can mark some fields as required, such as first name and last name, a user, maybe an email address, and a phone number. We can mark all of those as required just to make sure nothing slips through the cracks there. Then as you're reviewing information for those members, like we saw a moment ago, I can see all of that here on the member database page. I can just slide over and see what's what. And if I don't need to see all of this, I need to whittle it down a little bit. I can just come up to my edit button and I say, I don't really need to see certifications or emergency contact. What I really am concerned about is, which schedules are they on and which positions are they eligible to work. So I can, again, adjust those filters as needed. So I can see Frankie is on one schedule and is eligible to work 2 different positions. And I can see which positions just by clicking. Frankie here is eligible as a EMT and a paramedic. So very easy to be able to see all of this information. And again, edit this and make it your own within the member database. And of course, once we have all of the members inside of the system and set up, then I can go over to my schedule and see what the schedule looks like. And we can also build out rotations. So if you follow a certain pattern, maybe a 24-48 or something like that, we can build those into the system. We have some built in, just kind of pre-programmed in here, if it's a weekly or all the way up to 12-week, monthly, for one of these other common rotations, we can just easily add employees to these rotations. Now, if you have something, a crazy unique schedule just for you guys, we can build custom rotations in the system as well, and then assign those out. So if it's not one that's pre-built, we can always build that custom rotation according to your needs and assign it to the employees. Then once we assign a rotation to the employee, it'll pre-fill these schedules. So here I can see this calendar view. I can see when A shift is going to be working and B and C. We can color code those up at the top. I can see who is going to be working and when. Excuse me. I can see who's working and when and which schedule. Oftentimes we'll see schedules named for the apparatus that they're going to be working on. So here you can see engine 1, engine 2, medic 1, and battalion. So I can see all of that information here on this screen on this monthly view. And think of this as just kind of that high level overview. So you know what's going on within the department, within the organization. We have a lot of different colors on here to help point out things that may need some attention. So if I'm looking at the 17th here, I can see I have some signups like we saw on the dashboard. I can select the employee here and approve the sign up, and then they would be added to that day. And notice it removed some of those other signups. I can see who has time off on certain days. I can see, Jonathan has personal time on this day. Sandra had personal time back on the 9th. If we allow employees to trade shifts, those would show up on the schedule as well. I can see Joe was working for Bob on this day, notated by the yellow box and the little arrows here. And oftentimes our customers will have minimum staffing requirements, especially when we're working with CBAs and unions. And we can set those parameters up as well on the backside. So I can just hover over the red dot. So if I fall below a minimum staffing, these red dots will show up. So I know that I need to make sure I fill somebody on that shift, which is very easy to do. I've got a couple of different ways I can accomplish that. The first one is just by selecting that blue envelope, and then I can select which position I need. And then I can say who I'm going to send that out to. I can send it out to everybody that's qualified for that position, or maybe I just want to send it out to a certain group of employees, maybe my full-timers or my volunteers or my part-timers. I can break that out. Or if I just want to send it out to certain individuals, I could go that route as well. And then all I have to do is hit send. So super easy. They would receive email and text notifications that there's an opening, and then the employee would be able to sign up for that shift. So again, just to make sure that we have coverage for those days where we fall below our minimum staffing. And another way to easily fill that is just by selecting that open shift. So for the 21st, I'm just going to select a driver, and that's going to take me to my hourly editor. And here I see I've got an open position for the driver for that whole day. And if I have this selected, it's going to show me everybody that's eligible to work that position. Now it's also going to show me who else is already scheduled. And if somebody's on vacation, we would see that down here as well. If you allow your team members to put in availability, maybe their days are available or unavailable if we're working with volunteers, and maybe we have people that are still in college or they've got another job, we can allow them to mark when they're available or unavailable. And again, all of that would show up down here. But to fill that shift, if I know who I want to work that shift, I can just select Kathleen here and just drag and drop her, and now she's on that day. So it's as easy as that to fill the open shift. And if she can't work that whole day for some reason, maybe we know that she can't, but she's wanting some of those hours, I can just adjust this bar and say, all right, she's going to work about half the day, and then I'll put Brian on the back half. So very easy to make a quick update to the schedule. And if I need to mark something outside of regular time, I can do that from here as well. I can change that time type. So if it's not their regular pay, I can put out of rank, special event, overtime, really anything I need. There's no limit to how many time types you can have in the system. Oftentimes I'll see customers set this up as a training, or maybe for law enforcement, court time, and EMS, it could be transport time, if those are items that we need to keep track of, maybe for payroll purposes. So if I just select overtime here and hit OK, now I can see that Brian here is going to be that's time is going to be classified as overtime. Just touch on a couple of other views real quick. We also have a daily view of the schedule, so I can see who's working and when inside of this daily view. And if anything needed my attention, or if anybody was on vacation, I could see that down here at the bottom. And the same thing with my weekly view. I can see what's going on with for the week, just to give me an idea of where my employees are, who's on PTO. I can see all of that from here. My open shifts, I can see that I've got a lot of open shifts for this driver for the week. So maybe I need to get that filled. So again, very easy to just see what's going on at that high level with a monthly view, see where the openings are. And then I can also dig in and manage those exceptions that come up. Somebody calls in because their kid is sick or whatever the reason may be. I can send out that special message or that coverage alert, or I could just assign them like we saw with the drag and drop. Another thing that I like to point out with the calendar view here is I can add an event. Oftentimes I'll see events used as something outside of our normal schedule, right? Maybe I am a firefighter scheduled for my normal rotation, but I need something for maybe something else is going on within the organization. I could call it, maybe there's a Christmas party going on, or maybe there was a parade that's going to be happening, or a special training, or HR needs you to sign some paperwork. Maybe it's open enrollment. We can put that on there. And I can add, this information and then just add the event. And then once I do, I have the filter turned off, but the events would show up. Here it is. The event would show up down here at the bottom. So I can see here's the event for parade, and I have that for 2 days. But again, all of that information is easily viewable from this calendar view. And of course, employees would be able to see it from their side on their cell phone as well. So you have that transparency with the schedule. It's no longer going to have to be on a dry erase board or a piece of paper or an Excel spreadsheet. Employees can just pull up the schedule on their cell phone, and they can see when they work, and they can see who else is working as well. And just so everybody knows what's going on, you have that visibility into who's working and when. Next, I want to go over to our forms, and Nancy mentioned this at the beginning of the call. The form configurator, we have about 200 pre-built forms, and this is one of my favorite tools in the system, just because it's just very powerful and very useful. I can come in here and select any of these forms, right? I can select where's my engine checklist? I can select that, and here's everything that's on the pre-built form. Again, much like our member database configurator, I can have all of these different fields on here and go through and complete this from my cell phone. So if I have to do a rig check at the end of the week, I can open this up on my phone or on a laptop or a tablet, however we're accessing the system, and I can complete this. Or if I need to add something else, I can add any other field that I want over here and just drag and drop that, and again, edit these forms as needed. I've had customers in the past where all of their forms are being done by paper and on a clipboard, right? One of those big metal clipboards that we carry around. And we completely added that form, made it digital in our system. So you can start from scratch if you need to, or you can find one of the forms that has most of what you need and then just adjust the form as you need it, right? If one of the forms has about 80 or 90% of what you need, you can remove a few boxes, and then add a few more as needed. So really, there's no limit to what you can do with these forms. A lot of people use these for, like I said, rig checks or HR purposes. We can have timesheets in here. We could have, if you need to order gear, we could do that. Fire departments like to use these for inspections. If we have any incidents, we could have those logs in here as well. really anything that you need. Onboarding for a lot of our customers. Drug inventory is a big one, making sure we watch our scheduled drugs and keep those inventoried correctly and have a record of those rather than just on paper. We can have all of that inside of here as well. And the nice thing about these is once I create one, I can save it and then say who has access to those forms. I can say who is able to submit the form, who's able to complete it, and who's able to make edits to these forms as well. And if something fails on the form, maybe it's, the maybe on a fire engine, are all of the lights working? And we can say if something is marked as a no, that can send a special alert to a supervisor saying that something failed on a certain report or on a certain form. So we know that it needs our attention. We can also pull up these forms, pull up reports on the forms. So if you need to see the history of the lights on engine one, you can pull up all of that information. And if they had to fix the lights every single time, then we know, maybe there's something, maybe there's a deeper issue with the lights or with the engine itself. So we can get that addressed. You have that kind of access to the history in the system. And I mentioned reports right there. We do have several different standard reports, not to be confused with the forms. Some of the most common reports that we have in the system are going to be the summary report. That's just going to give you a breakdown of all of the hours for the date range that you select. So I can see how many total hours the employees worked. If they marked what their available hours were, we'd be able to see those. Extra hours, if somebody got held over at the end of a shift and they needed to submit some extra time, we can allow the employees to do that as well. And then those would show up here, as well as the paid time off, whether or not it's personal or vacation, bereavement, FMLA. We can keep track of all of that on here. And then the different time types, like I mentioned earlier, we have regular, out of rank, special, and then anything else that you would like to add to the system, we can. And what a lot of our customers will do with this is export this out as a CSV and use this for payroll purposes, since it has all of the hours that people were scheduled. And kind of along that line, we have the scheduled time report. This actually gives you the start and end time of everyone's scheduled time. And it shows you which schedule they were on, which position they were working, and different time types, whether or not it was regular or if we had overtime in here. Special event is right here. So again, you have access to all that information if we need to get it out of the system and potentially into payroll. Now, last report that I'd like to touch on is the system log. And this just captures any change made in the system. If you come in one day and the schedule looks weird and you're wondering why, you can always come into the system log and see who made the change, what they changed, what time they did that. Or if you're just updating the schedule and you accidentally fat finger something and you don't remember what the original was, you could always come into the system log and take a look at what the before and after were and make the correction again as needed. So again, make sure we give you as much information as possible. And oftentimes auditors will come in and look at the system log as well, just to make sure everything is looking good and in compliance. And the last thing I want to touch on is one of our newer features that was added recently, and that is shift bidding. And what shift bidding allows us to do is build out all of the assignments that we may have, a firefighter for A shift and engine one and engine two, and then B shift, engine one, engine two, whatever you may have available. We can build out those assignments. Let me go back in and edit this real quick. So you can name it. So maybe you guys will bid on assignments or rotations for first half or for the whole year. I can say when the submission period is, so when employees can actually submit what they want to work. And then the award period is when they would actually be working that. So first half of 2024, Jan through June. would be the award period here, and these are the shifts that I have available, and these are all the members that can look at it. And then I have sorting criteria as well. Oftentimes, what we see is it's awarded by seniority, and we have other criteria in the system as well. So if it has to be by seniority and then by title or position, we could do that to try to make sure we align with any CBAs or policies that you may have. We would set all of this, and then the period begins, and then employees would be able to log into the system and see that there'd be an active shift bidding period right here. I think I just turned it off, so sorry about that. But they would see that there's an active shift bidding period, and then they'd be able to go in and say, oh yes, I want this period, or I want this shift, and for the next for the first half of the 2024. So they'd be able to go in and say, yep, I want to be on shift A, or A shift engine 1. That's my top pick. And then B shift engine 1, followed by B shift engine 2. The employees would be able to submit that time. And then as a manager, I'd be able to come in here and look at this and say, yep, all right, everybody's time has been submitted. And I can see who hasn't submitted their time. And then all I would have to do is hit approve. And then once I hit approve, that would actually pre-fill the schedule for that date range, the award period. So you don't have to go in and assign a rotation. It'll just pre-populate your schedule and save you all of that time. And then whenever the next bidding period comes up, all you have to do is come back in here and open up another bidding period for the 2024 second half of the year. So hopefully that would help save you some time if you do have a policy where you allow shift bidding, and you can allow members to go in, select which shift they want, and rank them, whatever they're eligible for. And then those would be awarded based on seniority. And then once you approve it as a scheduler, like I said, it would just pre-fill all of the schedule, kind of like what you see here. Of course, there wouldn't be any openings because everything would be filled. But it would do that for you, so you don't actually have to go into the repeats and rotations and assign a rotation to each employee. So we do have that option available as well. With that, Nancy, I want to kind of reach back out to you. Were there any questions in the chat or for the Q&A?
Hey, I had a couple of quick questions. I just answered them in the chat itself.
Okay.
So I think we're sitting pretty good.
All right. Well, with that, Nancy, I will turn it back over to you,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right. Actually, that wraps us up for today. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. Thanks, Jonathan, for taking your time to present this for us. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, and we'd be happy to help you out. Thanks, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.